As Alfredo mentioned, I'm Lukas, and I want to start my presentation a bit differently than usually. So we're starting with a small challenge for everyone here. The widget that you're seeing behind me has 3 issues. Does anyone have an idea about an issue? Rodrigo, yes?
The Jack in red button.
Yes, that's one. Nice. Maybe some swag for Rodrigo later. Another one. Yeah.
The profile pic is so small, maybe?
No.
Another? Here? Get the mic.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 C's in the act.
2 C's in the... Yeah, but that's actually...
Okay, then it's the double dot behind.
I might let that one count. Then we have 4 issues.
I would say alignment issue. They are bending and the name needs to be left aligned, not like that in the center.
Actually,
You need to get the mic.
No, not really.
No. Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm past there.
Oh, yeah. The act and the Euro 50 is not aligned. The gray line.
did someone?
But it's aligned with the icon on the...
Why is the Euro 50 and the thing not aligned with
So we already have 5 issues.
Yeah, so we're starting to get very nitty gritty, but maybe last one.
Last one.
Yes.
I mean, it's also available, but yes.
Yeah, you could say that. So with the dollar in the US, usually you have it left. Yeah.
Okay, so no one has found it.
No. So there's definitely one issue that Rodrigo found. That was correct. But then there are 2 issues, and these are quite tricky to spot because they are not visible to the human eye.
Oh wow! Can you repeat it?
The check box with the red icon.
Yeah, exactly. That's really an issue because it's this one is too powerful. Basically.
Okay. Nice. So we don't give any glasses.
Rodrigo gets one, but for maybe you can still.
Why the alignment is not an issue? Because the way that the UI is the eyes should be aligned based on the.
That's always an issue if you're giving a presentation in front of professionals, right? You might find more issues to the UI. So it could be an issue.
Because the way that we are supporting the color is the same. Because I can say that, I want this for the user. So there is how we can say what is wrong, what is right.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? It's difficult. But anyway, so Rodrigo found an issue, great. For the others, could be issues actually. So maybe everyone gets glasses.
Everyone gets glasses.
So one issue was quite obvious. The others was quite of a trick question because they are really invisible to the human eye and very hard to spot for us. And that's what.
Can I say? Is it not a perfect SIM card and it's over?
Yeah, maybe. No, you're quite right. So this talk is about how we can teach coding agents to judge Flutter UI. I'm Lukas and I'm building Widgetbook. Quick show of hands here, who already heard about Widgetbook? Great, mostly everyone. And who's using Widgetbook right now in their current project? Okay, also quite a lot of people. Amazing. And basically, why do problems exist like the one that I was showing you? And that is with the rise of coding agents, it has become very easy now to build code and to build it very fast. But the issue is, it's now also becoming a lot faster, a lot easier for us to introduce bugs. And over time, those bugs basically become more and more and more until we have so much technical debt or so much UI debt that basically becomes overwhelming for us to manage. And the issue is that the agent itself, they can really review themselves. And we as humans, we also discussed it throughout the past days already with many of you, but as humans it's also really difficult, if not impossible, to review everything that the agent has been doing. So we need to be able to have a good feedback loop, first of all, for the agent itself, that they can self-correct, before we pass the review to the humans. And that's what my talk is going to be about. First of all, let's dive deeper into the problems, maybe to ease the confusion here. The first issue that we had, and it was spotted correctly by Rodrigo, is that unfortunately the coding agent didn't use our design system properly, but used a hard-coded value. And in light mode, it worked perfectly fine. But in dark mode, as we could just see, basically it looked like that a button just jumps out of the widget, and there was way too much contrast. So in light mode, it worked great. So as a human, we might have even verified it in light mode, but no one here in this audience tests all the widgets on all configurations manually. So you don't test every widget on every viewport, on every theme, every locale, every textual factor, etc. That's why in dark mode, unfortunately, we missed it. And the test would have just passed. And that's why, yeah, that's an issue that might have shipped here. The other issue, and you correctly assumed it, that it might happen, it's again a configuration that we didn't check here. So we might have again checked the default configuration on one of those devices, but the moment we scale it down on a smaller device, the UI breaks here. But the test would have actually passed on the default device. And the other issue, and that is one that was not visible at all to us, is the issue of accessibility testing. Accessibility, especially here in Europe, is becoming more and more important. In the end, for anyone that has not been familiar with accessibility testing, yet there are situations where only a fraction of us would be affected by it, where blind people, for example, they need a screen reader to navigate your app. And that is quite difficult for us to test, but there are also situations where all of us are affected. I mean, there are people like me wearing glasses, and all of us know it from elderly people that might increase the textual factor on their phone, for example. That might break the UI, but then there are also situations that we are facing here right now. We had the talk from Darko earlier, where you have to hold your microphone in one hand and only have one hand to navigate, right? So that is also always already an issue, and you have it sometimes also with an app, with a mobile app, where you have only one hand available to navigate. And these are all things that you have to take into consideration using accessibility. But the main issues are usually really with the semantics test and with screen reader test that you're running. Maybe quick show of hands here. Who already ran a screen reader test at some point in their lives? And who is doing it regularly on every pull request? Every pull request. That's impressive. And how annoying is that, probably? Very annoying. Yeah, that's what I thought, because most teams, they have the ambition of maybe starting it, but at some point you just don't do it anymore because it's too tedious. And that's why in our case here, we even set a semantic label. So even if you would be using some linting tests, you might the test would be green because the label is set, but the label doesn't make sense. The label just reads approve, but you don't know what you're approving here. So in the end, even though your test is green, it should fail actually because you're still violating accessibility standards. So in the end, we had 3 types of bugs here. All would have shipped. So we had the design system violation, we had the visual regression, and we had the semantic failure. The issue is that all of those bugs would have shipped, we wouldn't have noticed it. And as we discussed, for us as humans, it's also super cumbersome to test them. So we need to be able to have a proper feedback loop for agents, and that before we as humans get involved, the agent can self-view. And I would like to present you a solution now on how you could solve it. And Flutter is actually super well positioned here. So Flutter renders our UI as different trees. So we have the widget tree, as was also discussed during a talk earlier already, but then we also have the semantics tree. And in the end, with the widget tree, we already have the chance of differentiating a token from hard-coded value. And with the semantics tree, we really know exactly what the screen reader announces. So we can read the semantic labels, but we can also read the order in which the screen reader would actually read out the UI. And I would really like all of you to make use of those trees for your feedback loop for agents. The architecture that I'm suggesting is the foundation where during phase 0 you're using just a skill and then you're using our new Widgetbook API for your design system. Because the great thing is that with the open source Widgetbook, you can easily build your own custom design system. And by giving your agent the proper skill and the new Widgetbook API, the agent can perfectly understand your design system, and thereby you can be sure that you will always very consistently use the design system, and you will not have the agent making up new widgets or using some trivial widgets, for example. Afterwards, you would have a local loop where you could combine your setup with Flutter test that allows the agent to self-heal on functional tests. And then you could use a loop in the cloud that allows you to compare your new work of the agent against the old work, against the baseline that you already have, to basically check if all the changes that we're now introduced actually make sense. And only then, only once those two loops run through successfully, only then you would include the human in your review. How that looks in detail, you would have the skill for your Widgetbook, but actually, if you don't want to use Widgetbook, also fine, just use the design system skill. It's basically the same thing. I don't want to go into too much detail here. You can read one of our skills in our docs, but what's important is that in the end, the agent will always reach for your design system styles and design system components. So it will always reach for your app button and not, for example, for the generic icon button from Material. And with that, when I'm now introducing Widgetbook v4, which is the new version of Widgetbook, it's currently in beta. What we changed here for all of those that are not familiar with Widgetbook 4 yet, we now have a new meta argument. And this actually connects your new Widgetbook stories and your arcs and the new Widgetbook docs that we introduced that you can then easily reuse across your app. And we then have a new scenarios option in Widgetbook, and with scenarios you are now able to run tests exactly or immediately with your Widgetbook setup, and that allows you to include tests of various sorts. So you can now run golden tests, interaction tests, widget tests, basically any UI test that you can imagine. You can run automatically with Widgetbook, and the agent is able to call that Flutter test method anytime it wants. And then the agent can read the test output to self-heal. The test usually just takes a few seconds. It's local, it's deterministic, it's still in the open source package, so it's also free for you to run. And thereby you can already catch all your compile errors, you can already catch all broken interactions. And the only thing that you cannot do yet is you cannot test any regressions, and you can also not test those accessibility violations that I just explained earlier. And that's exactly where the cloud loop then comes into play. And here with just one command, you would just only push your build to Widgetbook Cloud. And here you're basically comparing against the expected diff. So the agent is then taken into consideration, okay, what did I actually want to test initially versus what was now changed. And because context is very important for agent, even though with Entropic's latest Opus 4.7, the context limit is already upgraded to I think 1 million tokens now, and probably there's going to be that context window is just going to increase in the future, but still it's quite valuable. So we would not give you the entire tree, but we would really give you only the difference here, and then you could just easily read as an agent what exactly was changed, and the agent would then easily understand the delta that we produced. And with that diff, we also run automatically accessibility tests, and one of those tests is just the very usual WCAG standards that we need to comply with, and because Widgetbook has this Flutter test integration possibility for you, you can run the very common Flutter meet guidelines that is already produced, that's already built by the Flutter team, and we are in good touch with the team, and they have it on the roadmap this year to extend that API more and more, so that not only the tests that are currently included can be tested, but that you end up having, in the end, a full accessibility test suite. Again, open source, free to use for everyone, and you can just integrate that with Widgetbook. And on top of that, and that is then something that we would only offer with the cloud, we have an intent judge. And that intent judge would not only catch, or would not only find out if you have a label set or no, but also if the intent is actually matched. Because we introduced a new documentation feature to Widgetbook, where you or your agent is able to document exactly how a certain component, how a certain screen is intended to be used. And the intent judge would then compare if that intent that we defined matches the actual outcome of that semantics tree. And with that, the agent can then just fix itself. So in our case, it would catch that the theme token wasn't used. It would catch that the spacing token wasn't properly used, and it would also catch that the semantic label, even though it was set wrongly, and then the agent would fix itself before it would then be passed to the human. So we would then be able to have all tests green. It takes a matter of seconds, and then it would be ready for a human review. For anyone that's already familiar with Widgetbook Cloud, you can then easily compare all your visual changes. Nice overview where we see on the left side, that's how it looked before, whereas on the right, that's how it looks now. And you get a summary of what happened, and then you can finally decide, okay, perfect, I approve the changes, and only then my pull request would turn green, so I can then merge whatever Git tool you're using, be it GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps, Bitbucket, you name it, so that the human can then easily verify what the agent built. To sum it up, we had 3 bugs. I said nobody found them. Rodrigo found one. Another was already assumed correctly. Maybe there were more issues in the widget. Initially, we have many experts here in the audience. But today, the agents will be able to find them, and tomorrow they won't make it into your code anymore. Again, to recap the workflow here, we had 3 verifier signals here. So we start with the foundation, where we're using the skill that prevents us to not use any design system slides or components. Then we have a local loop that ensures that we do self-healing on all our functional and syntactic issues. And then we have a cloud loop that ensures we don't have any unexpected visual regressions or accessibility regressions. And afterwards, we would have a human review to ensure what the agent produced actually makes sense to us. If you want to get started with that, let me know. I'll be here today, I'll be there tomorrow. Most of what we showed you is shipped in a regular product. the stuff on the right, so our accessibility tree div, the other accessibility tests are still in early access, but we've already rolled it out to some of our customers. If you'd like to have an early preview, test it, let me know. I'm happy to share it with you. And yeah, with that, I'm looking forward to your questions. Thanks a lot.